Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, developer advocate here at Dremio, and I wanted to show you how easy it is to try out the easy and open Data Lakehouse platform that is Dremio right here on your laptop. I want to set it up on my laptop. It takes absolutely no code. All you need to do is download Docker Desktop, which you can easily do by heading over to docker.com and, well, downloading Docker Desktop. Just click the download link. Okay, so this is going to be the website for Docker. You can just go in there and download Docker Desktop. If you want to get there even more direct, you can just Google Docker Desktop install. Okay, but once you have Docker Desktop, you'll be able to get a piece of software that looks like this. Okay, and then from here, what you need, and just to kind of explain some of the terminology, there are, if you're not familiar with Docker, is that there's images and containers. Think of images as like blueprints. Okay, so they're not an actual thing, they're a blueprint to make a thing. Okay, in this case, a little imaginary computer working on your laptop. Okay, so what I want is different imaginary computers running different pieces of software on my laptop. One to run Dremio, and another one to run a piece of software called Minio, which is a S3 compatible data store. So oftentimes in data, you're going to have a data lake, okay? Which chances are, I'm pretty sure you're probably familiar with a data lake if you're watching this video, but just to make sure, a data lake is going to be generally where you store all your data, structured, unstructured data, all the data goes there. It's your big dumping ground for data, okay? And oftentimes, your data lake wasn't always the most fun place to go do your data analytics work, so you'd still move some of that data over to a data warehouse, where oftentimes you have this nice SQL-based interface. Now, in the data lakehouse trend, so this new world of data lakehouses, essentially now you take that data lake, you let that be your storage of data. You don't move your data anywhere. You just keep it right there on your data lake. And then you put a data lakehouse platform like Dremio on top, which is going to give you that nice data warehouse-like feel, but using your data lake data. So you only have one copy of the data. And that pattern is referred to as the data lakehouse, giving a data warehouse feel to your data lake. Okay, so in that case, what I need is, again, to run Minio. That's going to be my storage. It's going to be my data lake, which, which could also be like a cloud data lake, like an AWS S3 or ADLS or Google Object Storage. Or you could have a cloud cluster running of Minio or other S3 compliant data stores. But that's what that purpose is going to do. And then Dremio is going to be our lakehouse platform. Okay, so first we need to get those images. And the way to get those images, you click here in the search bar, you can search for the images you want. So what you're going to want is the Dremio image, which is this image right here. To download it, you just click pull. That's going to download the image. To get the Minio image, I'll just search Minio. And I'm going to look for the Minio image. And I'm just going to pull. Okay, cool. Now I have those images. And now what I can do is I can create a container from those images. Those are the actual imaginary computers. So from the image, I can create a container. Okay, so basically all I have to do is click this little play button. Okay, and right now we're starting actually I want to do Dremio first. So let me go start Dremio first. Okay, and we click here on optional settings, and I'm going to give a name to the container. And then these numbers here, these are referred to as TCP IP ports. Okay, bottom line is this: your imaginary computer is literally like a full-on computer. So it's going to have all these ports for communication. It has the image exposes certain ports. So these are the ones that are exposed because they matter for that particular piece of software. This gives us an opportunity to map them to our computer so we can access them directly from our main computer. So really all you want to do is just match them. So 31010, 32010, 45678, 9047. Again, all this is going to do is just make it that I'm going to be able to access Dremio directly from my internet browser. But once I do that, I map my ports and I name the container. I just hit run. And now this container is going to start running. Okay, so I'll have Dremio running in a container on my laptop. Okay, it's just taking a second to start up. Okay, it's probably more a my laptop thing. Okay, so there it is. So now we see that Dremio has started running. Okay, if I click here on containers again, I'll see that I have a Dremio container. Now I'm going to go back to my images, and now I'm going to start a Minio image. So I'm going to click that little run button. I'm going to call this one Minio. And I'm going to map that port 9000 to port 9000. And then to 9001. Now for Minio, we're going to want to do one extra step, because we need to have a username and password out of the gate for Minio. And to set that up, we're going to want to use environmental variables. So right down here, we just need to define Minio root user. That's going to define the username, so admin. That could be whatever you want. And then Minio root password, which will just be password. And then Minio region, which is just to simulate a AWS S3 region for certain pieces of software when you connect. So region, which will just be US East 1. Shouldn't matter particularly for connecting to Dremio. Cool. And now that container is going to run. Okay, oops, I made a mistake when I was typing over the ports, so let me try that again. Okay, so again, 9000. Put too many zeros last time around. 9000. 9001. And then again, Minio root user admin. Minio root password. Password. Minio region US East 1. Okay, cool. And then again, I want to make sure I name that container. Now, keep in mind that as you create all these containers, they get all put on the same imaginary network that Docker is running. So not only does Docker create imaginary computers, but also creates an imaginary network called the bridge network. The fact that they are all networked together allows you to take advantage, so that way these different containers can talk to each other. The reason that's important is because we're going to want to connect Dremio to Minio. So we're going to need Minio's IP address to know how to connect to it from Dremio. So the way I can find that is I take a look at my containers here, and I click on Minio, and I click on Inspect. This is going to give me a bunch of information about the container I may or may not want. All I really care about right now is networks. So if I click on networks, I can find the IP address right here of that container on the bridge network. So there it is. Okay, we'll need that a little bit later on, but just keep in mind that I found that. Okay, so now we can go to our browser. Everything should be started up. So first, let's try out Minio. So again, Minio is playing the role, which actually is going to be localhost, because it's running on my computer. Localhost 9000. Okay, or 9001. That's going to take me here to Minio running on my computer. I'll type in the password and username that we set up initially. Okay, and again, this is essentially the Minio interface. And essentially, this is going to act as our data lake, our place of storage. So generally, when working with an object store, all your data gets organized into different buckets. Okay, think of them as like different hard drives or different folders on your computer. So I'm going to create a new bucket called warehouse. So that bucket is created. I can click over here to the object browser, and I can start treating this like a file system. I can actually go here to my warehouse bucket, and I can begin uploading files. So I'm going to upload an Excel file. Okay, so I'm going to go here to the documents. There's an Excel folder and sample data there. Okay, awesome. So that's been uploaded. Great. Now what I'm going to want to do is go open up Dremio. So that's going to be on localhost 9047. Okay. And here we go. We can go set up our Dremio admin account, since it's the first time anyone's logging into Dremio. Alex Merced, alex.merced@dremio.com. Feel free to email me if you have any questions along the way, or if you want me to speak at an event data related, like a data related meetup or conference. Always glad to talk. Then we're going to set up our password. And once we set up our password, we'll be good to go. Just got to make sure they work or they match. And good, they matched. Okay, so here's the Dremio UI. Okay, and you can do a lot here. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is connect your different data sources. Okay, which could be your data lake, but Dremio connects to several different data sources. So you can see here, there's like different like catalogs. Nessie is a whole other topic that I have several videos on. Different meta stores like the Hive meta store, different object stores. databases and data warehouses. So here you can see things like Amazon Redshift, which is a data warehouse. You can connect to other Dremio accounts that enables really nice, convenient sharing of data across so you can connect all your data to one Dremio account and then share it with another Dremio account, which makes it, instead of having to share from all sorts of different places or move the data to one place to share, you can just kind of coalesce all your data with Dremio and then share it with other Dremio instances. It's pretty powerful. Okay, but you can see here there's a lot of different things you can connect to, including other data warehouses like Snowflake, databases like Postgres. You have a lot of things you can connect to. But right now we're going to use the Amazon S3 connector because Minio is an S3 compliant data store. If you have your own Amazon S3 account or Azure Data Lake storage or any of these, feel free to connect to those. But right now we're just going to connect to using Amazon S3. We're going to connect to our Minio. So I'm going to name this source Minio. Okay. Oops. And for AWS, usually you would have this access and secret key that are like a big jumble of numbers, letters. Here we can just use our Minio admin and password, or username and password. But it's not the only way I can connect to AWS. So if you prefer using things like AWS Profile or EC2 metadata, okay, there are other ways to connect to Dremio. Okay. But in this case, I'm going to just put in like admin password. Okay, now I'm not going to encrypt the connection because technically Minio is running on my computer, which is unsecure. So there's no need to encrypt the connection. It won't work. If you have your own deployed Minio cluster that's working behind HTTPS, then you would want to encrypt the connection. Or if you're connecting to S3, which would work behind HTTPS or etc. Okay, so that's what we want to do on this pane. So then we're going to click over here to Advanced Options, and we're going to want to enable compatibility mode. Now this root path should point to a bucket. This will just make it easier to work with. So I'm going to, since we created a bucket called warehouse, we'll make it warehouse. Okay, well, warehouse. Okay, so that means just basically anytime I look at this source, instead of showing me like every bucket in my account, it'll start specifically in the warehouse bucket. Okay, cool. And this is just going to be like what your default table format is when working with this data source, when you create tables or, when you create tables. Okay, and then connection properties are going to be the other thing we want to change because there's certain properties we need for Dremio to recognize this as a not S3, but an S3 compatible data source. So first I need this style access property to be true. Then I'm going to need this FS3 endpoint to point to specifically the right IP address. So what I'm going to need to do is go grab that IP address back from Docker. So I'm going to head over here. Okay, and there's the IP address. So I'm going to go grab that because I can. Every time I create this container is going to be a different address. So keep that in mind. Okay, so then I'm going to put in the IP address. And then again, I need to point it to port 9000. Okay, so it's the IP address, then :9000 at the end. And then we're going to add another property, which is this property right here, which turns on Dremio's compatibility layer. So true. Okay, with all that set, we should be good to go. So I can hit save, and it should connect to our data source, and we'll be good to go. So just give that a moment. And there it goes. Okay, so you can see right there's our data source. And again, I can keep adding data sources by clicking on Add Source down here. Okay, easy peasy. Okay, now taking a look at your, as you can see, I already see the Excel file we uploaded to Minio. Okay, so you see, I can actually see the data on my storage layer. Okay, and I can go take a look at this file. I click on it. Now, whenever you click on a file, it's going to ask you to first format it. So when I click on this XLS file, it's going to first detect what kind of file it is. As you can see, it detects the data, and I can click this extract column names to make sure that it extracts that column. So that's and see, it even picks up on the schema. So it picked up on that that's a number. It picked up on that that's a date, because you can see these little icons here represent the data type. So this is like a string. Okay, making it really easy and visual to know what kind of data you're dealing with. Okay, so then I can hit save. Okay, and now I've promoted that Excel spreadsheet as a data source. So you see now it's like this purple square. That always means like a table. So now I can just click on it, and then I can open it, and I could go run a query on it. So right here is just going to bring me up all the data. Okay. Okay, and again, basically, again, this is running on your laptop, so keep that in mind. But bottom line is I queried that data. Wonderful. Okay. Now, a thing I might want to do is actually turn that into an Apache Iceberg table. Okay. And the reason for that is that Dremio can query Apache Iceberg tables even faster because of just the way Apache Iceberg tables provide metadata, that they store the data in Parquet files, is just going to allow for a much faster way to scan the data. Okay. So in that case, what I can do is I can do what's called a create table as statement. So I can do create table, and my data source, I want to be saving it in Minio, so I can just say Minio dot, example one, and we're going to say select star as, no, the as belongs here. So I'm creating the table as the result of this query. And then what I can do is if I already have this data set over here, so see here, I got the data set, I can just actually just copy that over to make life easier. And that's a nice thing about Dremio's SQL editor, is that now I have this nice data warehouse like SQL UI that's just really easy and nice to use. I can turn on dark mode and light mode. There's a lot of really real niceties to this. Okay, so now I can just run this query. This is going to create a table in my Minio that's of the iceberg format. Okay, oops, I made a mistake. So let's see here. Oop, I think I have a space there at the beginning. So let's see here. No, create table minio.example1 as select star from minio.sample. Oh, silly me. Okay, again, you got to make sure at least you still write your SQL correctly. I forgot the word from, the keyword from. It belongs right there. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Cool. You can tell it's late. But let's see here. Okay, it's going to run and create. See, right there, it created the iceberg table. Now, if I head over to Minio and I hit refresh, see, I see now that table exists. So see, this folder represents the iceberg table. Here's the iceberg metadata, and then here's all the Parquet files with that table. Okay, and now when I run a query on, if I were to go over here, so I'll just head back to the main section. Okay, if I click here on Minio, I see two tables. There is the iceberg table, example one. Okay, and here's the original Excel file. So if I click on this, I can go then scan this. Okay, and it's going to go read the metadata and give me back the results. Okay, awesome. And the cool thing is that Dremio is constantly doing caching, because again, the idea here is that it's going to cache data about your object storage using the columnar cloud cache in order to speed up performance on subsequent queries. So as I run this multiple times, you'll see that the performance just runs. So basically, once you hit certain data sets the first time, on subsequent times, you can just see it gets faster and faster. Dremio is constantly trying to optimize performance. So you can see that like that time it ran like sub-second. Okay. So there we go. I was able to run that query pretty nicely. And I can do full DML with iceberg tables. So if I go back over here and I say, hey, I just want to create a random table. So create table Minio example 2. Okay, and I'll just say, hey, we're going to have a name that is a varchar field. Okay, and then that's my table. And the cool thing is you can do multiple transactions. So now I can go here, I can go hit enter and say, hey, after that, I want to do is I want to insert into Minio.example2, because that should exist after that first query runs. Values, Alex Merced. Okay, so I'm going to insert that value into it. And then once that's done, let's actually query the table, select star from Minio.example2. Okay, and that, again, I forgot the from keyword. Ooh, Alex, sloppy today. Okay. Okay, but you see I run those all three. Now if I hit run, it queues each different transaction, runs them, and then I can individually see the results on these tabs. So I can go see the result of each query individually, which is really nice. Okay. And on top of it, there's all sorts of great SQL functions that are available to you, which I can go look up right over here for different types of SQL logic I may want to apply. Okay. Basically, here you have autocomplete. Okay, here you can see your keyboard shortcuts. Very, very convenient. Okay, but as you can see here, if I take a look at query 3, it successfully queried that new table. And now again, if I go over here, I go back to warehouse. So we see both tables. Okay, so essentially now I'm using my data lake in the same way, almost as if it were a database or a data warehouse, because Dremio has given me this nice interface to interact with my data lake. Okay, I'm no longer working with a bunch of individual files. I'm working with different data sets in a nice SQL format. Okay, and I don't have to do everything through the UI. I can do a lot of my data curation through the UI, and then through there's a REST API that's available from Dremio. You can also connect through Aeroflight or JDBC ODBC to integrate with your favorite BI dashboard tool or your Python notebooks, etc., to bring that data down. But I can connect all my data sources. So again, I can go over here, connect all my data sources in one place, start crafting my data. Okay, I can go here and create what's called a space. Okay, to organize my data. So I can go create like, hey, here's the marketing space. Here is a product space, to create kind of like data marts or data products, engineering. Okay, and then I can go over in here, and then I can start moving those data sources over there. So I can go say, hey, you know what? I want a copy actually in this engineering folder. What I'm going to do actually before we even save that, I'm going to actually create some subfolders. So I can click over here and create a new folder. And maybe I want to do like a medallion, bronze, silver, a medallion architecture. Okay. Okay, so then what I can do is I can go over here, because I, as the admin, see everything. But if I add other users to my Dremio cluster, they'd see nothing until I grant them permission to it. So I would grant all my engineering users access to the engineering folder, and they would be able to see this bronze, gold, silver folders. And then I can actually add documentation. So you can see here where it says wiki, I can go over here and edit this. Okay. So if I were looking at an individual data set, I can edit that wiki so that way you can have documentation on that. But first, let's actually do that data set thing. So I'm going to go over here. Let's just grab whatever data set. And then what I do is I want to say, hey, I want to save this as a view. Okay. And I can say, hey, I want to save that as a view inside the bronze folder. Okay. So we'll just say, hey, this is example 2 raw. So that's the raw data, or a view on the raw data. Okay. And then the engineering team, they can see this, and then they can further curate that into that, silver and gold layer, respectively. And they can just create more views on top of that raw view to curate what the specific views they need for their purposes. And again, I can go in there on that view, okay, and I'll be able to create a wiki on it. So like if I go here, let me just go right here, click here on, not there, I'm gonna click on here, edit, okay. I can click here where it says details, and then I can see the wiki right here. And here I can actually use Markdown. So let's say here, documentation, schema, and then fill this with a whole bunch of data, and see what they see is they see the documentation right here. Theoretically, they can see the data lineage around here. Once you start actually creating views upon views, you can create a thing called reflections here. Reflections, basically, think of them like materialized views on steroids. Like they take all the things you like about materialized views and get rid of all the things you don't like. All the work of having to sync it, and all you have to do is you just turn it on. So if I'm worrying about accelerating queries on the raw table, I'll turn on raw reflections. If we're talking about BI dashboards that are an aggregate type calculations, I would just click on aggregate reflections and then turn it on, and it's going to create sort of optimized representations of my data. Really useful when you're talking about data that is not already an Apache Iceberg, or the data that's like the result of like after several joins and views, and you just kind of want to have it just kind of work off that end result, you can just turn on these reflections on that view. So that's essentially Dremio in a nutshell. I highly recommend trying it out. Get hands-on. Best way to appreciate this. And you can use this for your day-to-day. So if you have this running on your laptop, and again, it'll keep running until you go over here in Docker and shut it off. Okay, and then when you shut it off, you can stop it and turn it back on when you need it. So you don't have to delete all your work. You can just pause it, okay, and then run it again when you want to use it again. Okay, but one last thing I want to show you guys. Yeah, just get hands-on with it. But you can use it for all sorts of cool things, because again, a cool thing you can do with any data set. So for example, this XLS data set, I can go now, you saw me turn it into an Apache Iceberg table, but I could also, after I run the query, so let me run the query once again, I can download the results in different file formats. So I can take the result of any data set I can view here, download it as a JSON, CSV, or a Parquet file in case I want to. So if I have a big Excel spreadsheet or a big CSV file that I'd like to turn into Parquet, this offers a really easy way to do that. So there's a lot of benefits to just getting hands-on with Dremio on your laptop. But then again, if you really like it, wouldn't this be really nice if all your company's data was all set up in one spot, in a place that you can access anywhere? So, talk to the powers that be about seeing how they can adopt Dremio at a company-wide level. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. My name is Alex Merced, developer advocate here at Dremio. Have a great day and enjoy.